Welcome to the Bullish podcast, where faith meets mental performance. Let this be your guide on a journey of growth and resilience. Each week, we dive into conversations with top performers, exploring the mindset and faith that fuel their successes. This is the Bullish podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Bullish podcast. I'm James, your host, and today we are having a mental performance coach on the podcast. And I love having fellow mental performance coaches because it brings not only another perspective of what we do and how we deliver just the type of coaching that is focused on mental performance, but it also gives another opportunity for you as a listener to hear the impact of mental performance on athletes, on musicians, on teams in general. And one of the big things that is touched on in the beginning of our conversation today is the power of your mind and your body. And in psychology, the terminology for this we use is psychosomatic. Psyche being the mental and soma meaning the physical. And specifically, there are several diagnoses throughout the DSM-5 that discusses the psychosomatic connections from a diagnosis and how they manifest within our physical bodies. So a lot of it, whether it's trauma, anxiety, different types of stress, depression, these things can be felt within your body, and most specifically has no physical connection, no physical reason or root to the problem, but a psychological root to the problem. And so there is a very impactful and powerful connection between your mind, your psychological health, and your body. And this is especially important when it comes to athletics. So whether you're getting enough sleep, whether you're managing your stress, whether you're managing your depression, a lot of people go into athletics and believe that if I'm moving and working out all the time, it's going to make all my mental health stuff just disappear. Now, while there is a connection between exercise and good mental health, there's also a reverse connection of mental to the physical. So your ability to perform physically in athletics is strongly related to how you're balancing your mental health. And today, our guest discusses a testimony of how powerful this mind and body connection can be. We also dive back into the world of visualization, which I love, but I'll let him talk a little bit more about his approach and how we go a step deeper into visualization. And of course, the importance of mental performance coaches in team environments. Without any further delay, I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Wilton Atkins, the CEO of Mental Skills Institute. He teaches and raises other mental performance coaches. So welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm excited to have a good chat with you.
Yeah, man. So let's start just with your background. Let's just explain kind of how you got into this and what drives you to raising up the next generation of mental performance coaches.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think for me, I was always a coach. I started coaching tennis sort of at the age of 17, 18, and I've been doing that ever since. But I had a career in tennis and college, and also track and field, and also in rugby too. But I never really got into the world of mental performance coaching. I had some really good coaches, but we never really got into mental performance coaching, and it wasn't really talked about. There maybe wasn't really a need for it, or wasn't really understood. So I mean, I had my whole career, I probably would have benefited a lot from mental performance coaching. There was some habits that I had, some beliefs and mindsets that I have that weren't optimum. So anyway, I never really got into the world of mental performance coaching until around about the age of 30, when I was going out with my now wife at the time, and she had a miraculous recovery from a chronic health condition. So she had something called chronic fatigue, or some people call it ME. It's similar to fibromyalgia, where you have this debilitating fatigue every single day, which comes with nausea, comes with having these body aches, physical body aches every day, and she also had a diagnosable gluten intolerance from medical doctors because of it. So she was going through this pretty tough time for multiple years. So the reason I say that is because she went on a sort of a mental performance coaching course as a last resort. It was like, okay, I need to help myself. Nothing else has worked. And on this 3-day course, she was able to learn some tools around her mindset, around her beliefs, around the mind-body connection and reducing the stress response to basically get her life back. So she came back after those 3 days, and believe it or not, she could now eat gluten after she had a diagnosable gluten intolerance. The body aches went away. We were able to have kids, and we now have an amazing, happy life. And that was about 10 years ago now. But this was a real transformation for her and a huge eye-opener for me. I was like, wow, what have I been missing out on this whole time, this whole different piece of the puzzle? So that, even though I was trained in sports psychology and different traditional coaching methodologies, this was a bit that I was totally unaware of. And so that got me curious, and it took my coaching in a whole new direction to unlocking mental skills. So I wasn't focused on the health benefits. I was more focused on how you can apply it to getting better. So that's a roundabout way of saying how I kind of came across it.
Man, that's huge. There's so much to unpack with that. I think I was kind of the same way growing up. I coached rugby for a number of years, and I was just implementing, good mentorship, good motivation, good self-talk and organization. But all that is encompassed in this kind of newer concept of mental performance coaching. But the skill set has been there for a long time, right? It just now has a title. And I think something that, listeners that listen to the podcast or that I've talked to, when they hear just the word mental, there's a stigma behind it, right? There's kind of these unspoken assumptions about, oh, you're working with a mental coach. How do you strip that away? What are some of the most common barriers that can stop people from getting into it sooner?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Exactly. The word mental does put a lot of people off. Like I've got even family, they're like, oh, you're a mental performance coach. Is like, there's that stigma behind it, because yeah, exactly right. But I mean, the way I describe it would be like, do you lift weights? Why do you lift weights? But you don't lift weights because you're a weak person. You lift weights because you're looking to get better. Yep. And same thing, do you like to read books?
Absolutely.
Is that because you're really dumb?
I read books so that I can learn more, gain wisdom.
Exactly. It's the same thing with mental performance. It's not because there's something necessarily wrong with you. It's for people that are wanting more. It's people that are looking to get even better than what they already are. And to my mind, that's every single person. Even LeBron James can get better. Everyone can get better. So it's moving away from that deficit model of you only go to see James if there's something wrong. Actually, you should be going to James looking to break through plateaus to keep going to the next level. So that's how I kind of think it has that stigma we kind of need to get rid of. But yeah, we can go into a little bit of how I kind of break it down to make it simple, because there's so many different mental skills, and there's so many great coaches out there that have their different approaches, but they often, each bit sort of fits into some really familiar categories or familiar pillars. And the pillars the way that I see it is about 5 of them. So mindset is one really important pillar. So there's a couple of key different mindsets. That's the first one. So the first one is having an improvement mindset, and the second mindset is having a mindset of taking ownership. So those 2 key mindsets, they can really help someone become really unstoppable and keep improving and growing. The second category that I like to say is around having that direction that's going to help your motivation. So, and if you don't have that, you don't have that some kind of intrinsic drive pulling you forward, or that positive emotion that you're going towards. So that's the clarity, having that clarity. That's really important across the board. The next pillar is beliefs and identity. And that can often be subconscious. That's quite a hard one to tackle, but that's really important in mental skills, because often people will get to a level and then they'll stop improving. So you'll get the person, and because our performance is often set by how we see ourselves.
Yep.
So if you only believe that you're going to get to a certain level, you'll stay at that level. So unlocking that belief and identity piece is relevant right across the board. The last one's probably the one that mental skills is, or sorry, the fourth one is the one that mental skills is most known for, and that's performance under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So that applies to everyone, whether you are going for the Olympic gold medal, Simone Biles on the pommel horse, or it could be you are going for a job interview.
Mm-hmm.
It's performing under pressure. And there's a whole range of amazing tools for that in mental skills. And then there's two others. How you communicate is the fifth one. And the last one is having a system and a structure around it. So within the complex system of mental skills, that's the theme and the difference that a really good mental performance coach can have within a team, individual, or a whole culture of an organization.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. You named so many different things that I feel like when you talk to people about, like, you talk about communication, you talk about motivation, some people, or a lot of people, I think, say, well, I'll just do it. When the time comes, I'll make it happen. I'll make it work. Right. But these are skills that are built over time. And they take a very intentional movement to build, and if we go back to the weight training idea, you were talking about a mindset of improvement, and it's kind of like a growth mindset, versus looking at the outcomes. Yep. If you're only lifting weights to get to, 200 pounds, 500 pounds, whatever it is, when you reach that, then does that mean you're done lifting weights? Like, is that it? Do you just stay at that weight forever now, or what's beyond that? And I think that ties into identity. We run into a lot of athletes that are now like, oh, I'm a basketball player. Okay. So what happens if you get hurt? What happens if you have to change your career path a little bit? Who are you when the basketball's gone? Yeah. And one thing that I don't think we talk a lot about, or I haven't yet on this podcast, is the communication piece as one of the pillars. Can you break that down just a little bit further? How does just communicating affect your mindset and your mental skills?
Yeah. So I think communication is such an amazing skill because it really influences how you think. So if you can communicate more effectively, you're also thinking more effectively too. The way in which you see patterns, the way in which you relate to the coach, the team, and you become more of a leader, and you just think with a lot more clarity. So it's so relevant in a performance environment, leveling up the communication skills in a performance context. And then there's the whole non-performance context, like who's going to be your life partner? Can you attract a quality life partner? You're not going to be able to do that, which is very holistic, unless you can communicate effectively.
It's really good.
So it's huge. It's huge. It really is huge. So we're helping people become amazing in their performance, but we're also being amazing at life in general. Mm-hmm. Whether you are a terrible communicator, that's okay, but there's levels that you can go up. You might not only get to here, but if you started from here, that's a great result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's so good. And just a little side note about how you said when you're developing mental skills, it's life skills, right? Like these aren't just caught in a vacuum. Like when you're developing these things, like they can be applied everywhere. And when it comes to communication, just how you're saying it, sometimes I feel like it's just growing your vocabulary. It's like, why do we read books? Part of why we read books is so we can see new verbiage, new language, new things used, so you can implement that into your life. And I really like that. Yeah. And when I think of communication, I think of teamwork. I think of just team culture, and sometimes the thing that I feel like can stop mental skills entering a team are coaches. How has that experience been for you, working with coaches of teams to encourage them or help them build that skill set of delivering mental skills in a team situation?
Yeah. And that really comes into, it is a challenge, but it comes down to trying to integrate it into why it matters. So you really kind of need to sell it to them. So like one way to sell it to them is trying to make it really relevant. So how could you make it relevant to a sales, the leader of the sales team or the leader of the rugby team? So let's say you have a sales team. It's like, why do we need mental skills? It's like, okay, so let's say you've got a whole team that struggle with closing, or they struggle with selling and getting out in front of people. They struggle to pick up the phone. They struggle to get face-to-face meetings. Okay, so how can mental skills help with that? So firstly, mindset, coaching around mindset, like we talked about, improvement mindset, knowing it's okay to fail and trying to grow and improve, taking ownership, having a mindset of extreme ownership, agency. Now, then it's around the pillar around having a vision. What do you actually want? Being clear on your values, being true to that. Same thing around, do you have some sort of belief do they have a belief that's holding them back, that maybe they shouldn't be picking up the phone because they're scared or for some reason? And then performance under pressure tools, okay? And now we give specific tools, okay? This is how you chill out and have a more productive call. So it's like, this is how you can link it back. And then it's relevant for them because their team's performing better. What's in it for them? He's going to look better and they're going to make more money.
Right.
So, okay, there you go. It's practical. Same thing for like the sports context. I know you're a rugby player, or even let's say basketball, netball, whatever, anything, hockey. A situation when it's an overtime situation or a pressure situation when somebody is not delivering how they should be delivering. All of these things apply. So let's say you need the ball in your hands to win the game in overtime, but you're scared to do it. This is a common thing that most people have. A lot of people have. How can you communicate to a coach how you're going to help them? Okay, so we can help with their mindset. How can they think better about it? What's the values that they should be staying true to? Living a life of courage and bravery. That might be one of their values. Working on their beliefs. Do they believe that they shouldn't have the ball in their hands? Do they have any tools in play to be clutch? Because they have never been taught how to be clutch. So it's relevant. And so you almost have to be a little bit of that sales side. It's not sales, but it's a transfer of a belief of why it's important, and you sort of need case studies of how it's worked in the past. But you're exactly right. If it's not bought into by the leadership, you're gonna get a hospital pass. It's gonna be okay, James is coming in. He's an awesome mental skills coach. Go and see James if you have a problem with anxiety or not performing under pressure, or if you have some. And so no one's going to go and see you because there's that stigma associated. The leadership doesn't believe in it, and it's not integrated. So it has to be bought into by the leadership. It's top down. And it needs to be like embodied by everybody, and then everyone needs to understand what the common vision is, what the shared values are, what the shared mindset is, so that not only the leaders get it, but everyone from the bottom up gets it too. So it's like talked about every day, lived every day, and then you have an environment that is. The coach isn't, the mental skills coach isn't necessarily needed. They're there to help with tools and being there for accountability, but they have now driven that internally, because it's not my vision or values that they've adopted, it's their own. Yep. So they're fully self-driven now. So that's a utopian situation.
You're right. Yeah, that's when everything works out and falls into place perfectly. Yeah. No, I love that. And you said something about the buy-in, and then just letting them being able to do it on their own. And I think sometimes we can forget as coaches that we're not the ones on the pitch, right? We're not the ones necessarily in the game situations. We're on the sidelines, we're guiding and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we want to be raising athletes who can be confident in their skills, make the decisions that are necessary, and feel good about playing as a team. And when I worked at the university, we really built out as just the team culture. Like, what's team culture? And I don't know if that's talked a lot about at the lower levels of team sports. Is what's the culture of your team? What are you guys envisioning for this team? Where do you guys, what's the big belief like you were talking about? And I think that's important. I think that helps create a shared language, a shared direction, and you don't have kind of these rogue players doing, their own thing, or rogue coaches. So something that you mentioned when I first reached out to you, you were talking about this new technique that I'm really interested in you sharing. And it sounds like it might be sort of linked to EMDR. And as a psychologist, I've been a psychologist for 15 years. And, EMDR is a big part of just trauma therapy and, recovering from that. So I'm really curious to hear you talk about this technique in terms of mental skills as a mental skills tool.
Yeah. So it's called the movie theater technique. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it is sort of related to EMDR or RTM, but in a performance context, it's really relevant as well. So basically, if somebody has maybe a little bit of anxiety around a future event, which is really common in work contexts or sports contexts, it's like there's something big coming up, a pinnacle event, pinnacle moment that maybe you need to do a bit of pre-routine to get ready for it mentally, because it matters a lot. Mm-hmm. And in the past, it was used for people with PTSD. Mm-hmm. So they could see the previous memory, but from a dissociated standpoint, so that it would take away a little bit of that emotion from it. They could deal with it a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So, but in a performance context, it works similar. You take away a little bit of the emotion from it so that you're a bit more clearer when it comes to the situation. So it's actually quite a really simple technique. It's a really simple visualization. It goes something like this. So let's say that you are doing a big presentation, you're doing a TED talk or something. You're about to do the biggest TED talk in front of 1 million people, and you want to prepare for that mentally. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is you would visualize yourself, and people at home, they can visualize themselves in whatever their pinnacle moment is: job interview, clutch sporting performance, whatever it needs to be. So let's say it's you doing a TED talk. You're going to visualize yourself sitting in the front row of a movie theater, and on the big screen in front of you on that movie theater is you performing the TED talk. So you see yourself performing the TED talk. So in order for someone to know how to visualize, firstly, there's obviously all the coaching that goes into it beforehand. We're not going to just jump into it. So you need to have trust, rapport, get them into a relaxed state, all of those things. But let's say you're willing to do this. You would visualize yourself seeing yourself doing the TED talk on the screen in front of you from the front row of the movie theater. And you also, what you're going to do is you're going to turn on your submodalities, like your 5 senses. So you're going to be seeing what you saw, or seeing yourself, hearing what you heard, and feeling what you felt. So it's really, really getting into a deeper visualization with those senses. So you see yourself from the front row of the movie theater. Now the next part is like the double dissociation. You imagine yourself floating back to the back room, the projection booth, and observing yourself in the front row, observing yourself on the big screen. So that's the double dissociation that takes away that emotion. You are seeing yourself from that dissociated third person situation, and you're seeing it more clearly. And the same thing, you're going to do the exact same process. Visualize yourself doing the TED talk exactly how you want to do it. The sounds, the feelings, and what you see. So that's the second part, from that dissociated state. And the last part is you will be associated, you'll be seeing yourself from the movie theater. On the screen. You're now in the screen doing it. And that's from that associated standpoint. So what you're doing there is you're really doing that pre-rehearsal from different angles with different submodalities. So it's more of a deeper and consolidating that situation. And you can even do other things like making it more intense, making it in fast forward or rewind. You can also do it in situations where you see a challenge, maybe interruption from the audience or something like that. So it's not a complicated technique, but the research has found that it's been really, really effective.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah. I love visualization. I love the different degrees of dissociation that you're implementing into this. I never looked at doing that. That sounds like it could be really powerful. So when you don't have to give names or anything like that, but when you've done this with clients, what are some of the results that they're seeing in that pinnacle event that they're doing this for?
Yeah, well, I mean, it allows them to really dial in, like, not only takes away the worry, but it's like they get into quite an empowered state about how they're actually not only going to take away the stress, but how they're actually going to dominate it. So it takes away from a worried situation to like, okay, now I'm actually going to dominate this play or dominate this situation. So they get a lot of clarity, they get a lot of confidence and more belief from doing it. So it's just one tool, and that's how it can apply to it. I've also used it successfully in like removal of a phobia or alleviating a phobia. So for example, somebody that is scared of something like leaving the house, it can really help with that. But yeah, it's just one tool. There's a lot of other tools, as you know. Sort of there's future timeline visualizations where you can visualize yourself having successfully completing the event. It's very similar but a little bit different. So many different things you could do: mindfulness, triggering, 3-2-1 techniques. There's so many things, but that's just one tool that's I'm quite excited about it because it's getting a bit more mainstream, because people like to see the research, to see the successful research behind it. Yeah,
that's good. Is there a danger for athletes becoming too focused then on a future event versus the present by doing this?
Yeah, no, you're right. And so that's probably one of the main tools around focus, is being grounded in the present moment.
Yeah.
So that mindfulness has a really important place, trying to ground yourself, focus in on that present moment. So you're right, exactly right. It's case by case. It's not just about doing that and everything's going to be okay.
Right.
Because you also need the other tool of grounding yourself when it's actually there to be really present.
Yeah, that's good. And it is case by case. And everybody's journey is unique, which is why sometimes it's good to have a coach to walk with you through all that. And to help build that up. So yeah, man, we are running down near the end of our time. I want you to just share a little bit more about Mental Skills Institute, kind of what you work on. If anyone is interested in reaching out to you, where can they find you?
I love what you're doing, by the way. I think it's really cool. So for me, I have a company called the Mental Skills Institute, where we help companies and teams, whether it be a business or a sports team, perform better. So if you are wanting to improve performance, to lift revenue, to have a more enjoyable performance, a more sustainable performance, that's where we come in. We teach a lot of what I've talked about today in much more detail. How do you find me? I'm active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Mental Skills Institute is our website, and my name is Wilton Atkins. You can just search me online. So happy to have a chat.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Well, yeah, we're just out here trying to share wisdom, connect people with the wider world of mental performance skills. So thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate your time, man.
No, I appreciate you. I love what you're doing. Love your guests, so keep it up.
Thanks, man, for joining us on the podcast today. So much incredible information just for you, the listeners, to implement into your toolbox of mental performance skills. And if you are an athlete, a musician, a coach, somebody who is looking to add the X factor to help make their game go to the next level, reach out to us at www.bullishstrive.com. I'd love to chat with you and just build a roadmap to overcome your barrier. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll see you next week. And always remember, it starts with you and your destiny is waiting. Peace.